Okay guys, I'm going to try to do a part two. So we talked about these. So the Seadweller was always what I thought I wanted the most, because it's like a Submariner, but it's just a little bit extra special, just because it's got, well, what I love about these modern ones, first of all, is the fully graduated bezel. You know, it's a little bit like the mill sub, and it's just got a cool look, even though it's slightly odd because they're not all the same size, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, so it's got the date, and I always like having the date if it's a daily. So when I was thinking about, you know, my Grail watch, when this came out, this kind of really seemed like it would be a good candidate because it's the Seadweller, which I always thought was a bit more interesting than a Submariner. Obviously I don't need the I do dive, but not in a, obviously not professionally, and forget about the depth. Like, nobody needs that depth. Everybody could get by with a Submariner pretty much, except for some very special circumstances. But yeah, it's just a little bit interesting, and I like the Cyclops. I like the no Cyclops, and I like having the date. Ideally, I like not having the date too, because I don't know, it's hard to say. They're both good because I do use it as a reference a lot of the time. I usually know what the date is, but sometimes it's great to just look down and see the date. So yeah, I like both, I guess, but I like the date without the Cyclops, and I definitely did when this came out too, because I never actually had a Cyclops at that point, and so I just thought it was kind of it was like even better with the date with no Cyclops. But now I like them all. But so I love this because, as I said, it's kind of like just that little bit more special than a regular Submariner, and it's got the right size, and it's from the era of the super case, but it's got a super case, but it's also got the slimmer lugs. It's probably not as slim as the new Submariner, but it's definitely slimmer lugs than the standard Submariner of its day. So I really do like that, and I like that it's 40 millimeters. I had the deep sea. I've tried on the 43, but the 40 is way better for my taste. So it's got a great size on the wrist in terms of the footprint. And it's got all of the updated features, which are great, because the ceramic is a great material because it's, you know, scratch resistant. It always looks new, and it is, you know, it is nice and shiny if you like that. You know, the aluminum's great if you don't like that as much, and it's good to have it's good for, you know, a certain look. It's not as classic or patinaed and just kind of low key as the aluminum bezels were. So yeah, it's just kind of variety. The one drawback for me that wasn't a drawback when I first got it, but now as my tastes have evolved to what they are now, they may change again. I doubt it though. Is the thickness, because it has, as I've said in another video, they do break it up very well on this watch, the thickness, but it has, you know, the extra big case back because of the water rating. It's got a thicker mid case, but they've kept it pretty much probably as slim as they could, and it's got a thicker crystal, so therefore it has a thicker, you know, a taller bezel, so it all adds up to pretty substantial thickness. Nothing crazy, and it's almost it is bizarre to me that this is almost like a standard thickness now, being 15 millimeters, or it may be actually about 14 and a half. It's 14 and a half or 15. It's not 15 and a half. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that's almost like a regular watch now, which is weird for me, because I don't think you should ever make a watch thicker than you need to. So yeah, but it still gets away with it, and it has that presence, that wrist presence, because of the height. So some people, I think, do like that. For me, it's still very wearable, but it would definitely be even more perfect, or even closer to perfect, I should say, if it were as slim as a regular Submariner. If they could get away with that, it would be pretty cool. But yeah, so that's special, and obviously wasn't made for a long time, which is neither here nor there, but it's just kind of another thing that makes it a little bit special. It's got the glide lock, which is, I think I've said before, is the best feature of the modern watches, because it's the one, well, it's the one you'll interact with the most. I change my size a lot. It's not that you can't get the older ones to size properly, but it will be sometimes a little bit snug or a little bit loose depending on how you do it. You could obviously have it where it's never too snug, but then it will be that little bit, you know, even more loose than you'd want it to be. So the glide lock pretty much solves all of that. And these, you know, it's one of the best adjustments that I've seen on any watch. The deep sea is even better, but definitely not enough to justify the size for me. Even though it's a great watch, and that was my first Rolex, actually. It was a deep sea. So it was before I realized that I much prefer the smaller sizes. So, and then this is another one that is special, and it's kind of an anomaly to my tastes, but it's the Hulk, and it was kind of one of those things that I felt like at a certain point it was like I just felt a strong need that I really needed it, and I don't regret it at all, even though it's not ideal in the size for me, just because the super case is not my favorite. It's not my favorite, you know, footprint of a Rolex watch, but this is a special watch, and I wouldn't get rid of this one. It's so different in its look, and of course it is nice and slim. It's got a great movement with slight upgrades over the older ones. It's got the chromalite with the big plots, so that helps a lot. I'll mention that when I talk about the Daytona, but it's got lots of Loom, works great. Nothing as good as tritium. Tritium, I actually usually sleep with a watch that has tritium. So chromalite's good. It's not as good as tritium. And yeah, it doesn't glow as bright as some Seikos, but I'll tell you, if this is charged up in the sun or by a flashlight or anything, this will glow strong all night. You will not have a problem for 8-10 hours easy. If you do it right, if you charge it right before you go to bed, there's not going to be a problem no matter what. It's going to glow like a champ all night. So it definitely works like that. Yeah, so it's just a special watch. It's the special color. It's just got the visual impact. It's got a bit more of the size, but again, very wearable, nice and slim, around 12.5 millimeters. It's got the glide lock. You know, it's dress up, or you can dress it up really, but it's vibrant. It's pop of color for sure, and it's a beautiful color. Even though I've said before, it's a slightly strange color. It's kind of I've never come up with a good way to describe it. It's not a pastel, but it's kind of muted, and I mean the bezel itself. The dial is super cool. You couldn't have a cooler color of green and cooler effect of the sunburst. I mean, at this level, there's obviously better watches than these, but at this level of the game, the dial is fantastic, and it's just super cool. I don't know, well, I'm kind of glad, actually. I'm glad that they made the new one a Kermit instead of a Hulk, because this one just stays that much more special. So it's the all green, and it's kind of in your face, but it's just kind of cool and relaxed too. But yeah, the bezel is a slightly strange color. I would have thought that they would go with some type of a richer green or a deeper green, but at the same time, sometimes you see like the stuff they make, it's a pretty light green, like their boxes or their I don't know, their pens or whatever the colors that they use, they're green for. I mean, the older wallets, right? Like the wallets and the green boxes of these days was like a rich, you know, it was leather and it was a richer, deeper green, but the more modern one seems to be a bit lighter. So, but yeah, just it's very kind of, how would you say? I don't want to use the word unique any more than I ever have to. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit eccentric or idiomatic or whatever you want to say, but it's kind of a special Rolex green watch, and I love that because it is, yeah, just makes it a bit special. And then this is my most recent pickup, and it's that's definitely a special one for me, because it kind of gave me a slight crisis because I didn't understand how much nicer it actually was than the other sport models. I mean, again, it's Rolex are not the nicest watches. They're not the most handcrafted or you know, highly finished inside or out. They're not up there with the real like fancy watches, but I kind of like that because I'm not a fancy guy, and I like a basic watch. I like that Rolex is a basic watch, even though it's not a basic price, of course, and it's not basically easy to get, but it is just an everyday utilitarian watch. It's not a dress watch. It's not something that won't go. It'll go with anything you wear. But these are much nicer than anything else in this box, as far as I'm concerned. Especially the dial, like the finish, it will not pick up in this camera for sure. But if you get this in the sun, the sub dials, they just have like a rainbow effect. It's unbelievable, beautiful finish on the dial of this watch. And it's weird. Like there's kind of this like mythology around the Daytona. It's just a basic watch at the end of the day, though. It's, you know, it's a chronograph. Again, I like it because it has no date, so it's just simple. It's a super simple watch. If you didn't know what it was, if Rolex didn't exist, but there were every other watch around that exists, but Rolex didn't, and you just saw this, it would just be like a simple basic watch, you know, with a chronograph. So it's nothing crazy. And if you don't, so for that reason, it just goes with, I'm going to close this up a bit because it's on its biggest setting. Yeah, of course I can't do it. So yeah, I love this because I was thinking of when the new one came out, like I never had a Daytona, and I liked the ceramic, and I was all about like the newer stuff a little while ago, but this is just your basic all metal watch, and it's so perfect. I think people think of this as like a boring watch, and like why does this command the prices it does, and like it's just super boring. They haven't changed it. Like they've barely changed it since 1988 in a sense. But that's kind of its greatest strength, as far as I'm concerned. And I was the same way. I guess I'm just like projecting what I thought. I was like, I never cared about Daytonas, and I don't care that much about their motorsport history, to be honest. I think a lot of it's kind of a little bit phony and whatever, and that's all good. I mean, it's just a watch, right? It's just marketing, and it's just whatever. But this is the one that really like grew on me, and it kind of I eventually kind of got it, that it's so basic. It's so, it's nice to have a chronograph because, you know, it's just one of those cool types of, you know, classic types of watches. And I just like that it's simple, that it's not trying to be actually that special. It's just super well made. And of course, and especially as my taste kind of, these are special and I wouldn't get rid of them. And I love them for what they are, but these are really the watches that I like, that I wear. These two are fantastic. They're simple. They have no date. You pick them up. It's only 12-hour functionality. You set it quickly, and you're good to go. And they're not. You don't have to worry about them. They're not flashy. They're not like glossy. They're just basic watches. They're great. They're beautiful watches. They look great with everything, and they're slim, and they're just simple. And that's why I love this watch, because it's got all of that. It's a little bit higher end, and I mean, it's got that flashiness because it's polished. So it could be like your special occasion watch, obviously, and it'll go with a suit, and it'll go with a tuxedo. I mean, whatever. What are your rules for what do you wear with a tuxedo? I mean, for me, it's just, you know, a nice watch. It can be a sports watch because I'm not gonna wear. I'm not gonna buy a dress watch just when a few times I wear a suit or a tuxedo. You know, I have a tuxedo. I wear them sometimes if, you know, some weddings will be black tie, stuff like that. But so it'll go with that. It'll be nice enough for that. But it's also just simple enough for every day. So so anyway, yeah, this was the one that grew on me, and you start out thinking, yeah, it's not that special. Why would I ever put that much time and energy into this watch when it's so basic. But then for me, it's just kind of, that's like become its greatest attribute, is that it's kind of, it's a very special watch, but it's nothing, it's not trying to be special. It's just very well made. That's what I think anyway. And again, because as a chronograph, I've had a bunch of chronographs. A lot of them are great. Most of them are just too thick, and it's right down to the movement almost always. You know, if for an automatic chronograph, especially, even the manual one chronographs are usually thick, but for an automatic chronograph, I mean, column wheel, vertical clutch, 72-hour power reserve, and it's slimmer than an Explorer 2, you know, or it's right on par. And that's even with a protruding crystal. So I mean, it's just, it wears perfectly, and it wears perfectly on an 8-inch wrist. It wears perfectly on a 6.5-inch wrist, and yeah, I don't know. I've said the word perfect too much, but yeah, that's for in this segment. I mean, the price is high, but for what it is, I don't think there's a better chronograph out there, not for me anyway. So yeah, that's kind of what. And then the funny thing was, I kind of had decided. So this one, the one thing I don't like about this one, and it makes no sense to me, but this is one of the ones where the 27 and the 33-minute marker is not as long as all the other ones, even though there's no reason why it wouldn't be. They change around. Some have it, some don't. Even the older ones, or even the modern ones, some of them have the tall 27 and 33 marker, and some don't. This one doesn't, but especially these days, I had to go with something that was nearby. I got something from the same area that I was in, because I've paid duties before on some stuff, and it's not fun, especially on something at this level. So but I wanted a chromalite. I wanted the chromalite because of these, because if you compare the Loom on these to the Loom on these, it's not even close. The Loom sufficient on these is pretty good, but it's a completely different ball game with chromalite because of the large plots. But I didn't realize, like, this has the chromalite, it's great, but it will not last the same way that these do, not with the same level of legibility. People crap on the legibility of this. It's no problem for telling the time in light, in my experience. I mean, it's not that hard. Move your wrist around a bit, right? But these ones have the Loom down, and I thought it would be like some magic chromalite thing, but it's down to, you know, how much Loom is on there, how big the plots are, how many coats, or the volume of the Loom that they've been able to put into these hands and these plots. So it wasn't the magic I was hoping for, but it's still great. It works definitely. It's probably got better Loom than a lot of the chronographs that would compete like one-to-one with it, I guess. So, you know, you can't knock chromalite, but it's not the magic that I was hoping for, but, you know, nothing ever is. But yeah, so that's kind of my collection. So obviously, as I've said, I value kind of the elegant or the classic size of the classic sports watch size. And that's my favorite. I like the slimness. I like how it fits on the wrist. It's not too heavy. It's just perfect, understated. I love the oyster bracelet in any form, and that's what I've gone for. So those are my thoughts on these, and I guess I've gone over a few reasons why you might buy one of these instead of the other. So those are my thoughts. So let me know if you have any thoughts or questions, or tell me that it's garbage and that I should do it over with a proper camera and better lighting and not have to make it 2 parts. But say whatever you want. But but yeah, so I hope you enjoy the video. I hope it was some use for you, because that's really why I do it, because I like the fact that people take the time to explain their watches and show their watches for an extended period of time, so I can kind of get more info without having to try them on sometimes. So that's kind of why I've done it, and it's fun. So and I get some comments sometimes, and people have asked me to do certain videos sometimes, and I'm happy to do that if you have any questions, or want to see a different type of video, or hear my thoughts about anything that I haven't talked about. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.